Thank you, everybody. First of all, thank you very much for choosing my talk. I know there's a bit of competition. I promise I'll try and make it worth your while. So we're going to be talking about from inside out to outside in, aligning teams around what matters. And so really what I'm looking to do today is answer the question, are our teams truly structured to deliver what matters most, which we've heard a number of times so far today, value to our customers. How do we go about doing that? And hopefully you walk away today with some practical ways of making work visible and being able to help people collaborate around this. But I'm going to use a bit of a weird metaphor, and hopefully it's going to land, but we'll see. So the metaphor I'm going to use today is the movie Inside Out. So quick show of hands, has anyone seen the movie Inside Out? Awesome, excellent. That's great. So for those that haven't seen it, I will give you a quick overview. Another quick show of hands, has anyone got kids in the house? Okay, cool, great. So a lot of this, if you don't take away from this things for your organization, it will help you in raising your kids, hopefully. So before we get into the details, so who am I? My name's Rich Allen. I'm founder of Conjurer Solutions, which is a boutique consultancy based in the UK in Bournemouth on the south coast. I'm what they call a team topologies value practitioner. Essentially what that means is back in September 2019, I was trying to convince Pure Gym at the time how they should restructure their teams, and it was falling on deaf ears. Team Topologies came out and said, this is what you should be doing, and they went, oh, yes, we should do something about that, we should change. So it became a catalyst. I reached out to Matthew and Manuel, and they said, hey, want to come and work with us for a bit to help other organizations pick up some of the challenges and learn how to do those things. So we've been working with them to create workshops and other practices to help organizations pick up on the nuances of team topology, so the bits you don't necessarily get out of the book. And one of the things I brought to the table was this concept of user needs mapping. Now, I put curator. I didn't actually create it, I just gave it a name. Anyone heard of Wardley mapping? Quick show of hands, Wardley mapping. So basically, user needs mapping is the first four steps of Wardley mapping, and with a little bit of team topologies thrown in. So there's nothing unique or amazing. I've just given it a name and created some useful information for you to learn about it. So head on over to user needs mapping for more detail. I'm going to focus on practically how we apply it in our particular world. So we're going to look at what is the problem, so inside-out thinking. Then we'll look at how we can start to shift to outside-in thinking using user needs mapping. We'll touch on a real-world example and then wrap up with some key takeaways. So, for those that haven't seen the movie introduces someone called Riley. Riley is an 11-year-old, and Riley is living her best life, but she's very much controlled by her internal emotions. Her emotions are joy, sadness, anger, fear, and disgust. And those emotions tend to influence and shape her identity, and her identity is made up of her islands of personality. So inside of her brain, this is all coming from within inside of Riley's brain. We could call it Riley Inc., as it were. And so they're managing her family island, managing her friendship island, hockey island, and goofball island. So this is inside of Riley's brain, but many organizations are actually organized very similarly. So they're organized around elements of their identity. And how they're actually looking inside of the organization. So, what's the problem with inside-out thinking? If organizations then are like Riley's mind, then each of those emotions are trying to control Riley with their own agendas. So joy wants to make everything happy, and sadness wants to make everything really sad. But organizations tend to do that as well. So we've got silos within our organization that are have their own individual priorities. So quick question to you then, so maybe a shout out, which part of your organization would you put joy in? What might be joy in your organization? Any particular part? Sales? Sales is joy. Marketing? Okay, yeah. And what about anger? Finance. Yeah, procurement, all of those things. Bit of fear in there? Security. Risk, security, lovely. Right, so this is what I came up with. So Joy's our CEO. She just wants everything to be positive and happy. Who cares about the risks? It's fine. We just want that. And then, of course, we've got fear, which is legal, completely kiboshing anything that's a potential risk, blocking new ideas at all opportunities. Anger is IT and ops, getting really frustrated with, what do you need that for? That's ridiculous. And then I've got marketing as discussed, quite frankly. It's like, what do we care about actual user needs for? We should just market this. It's amazing. And then, of course, right at the end, we have poor old sadness, which is customer support and HR. And really, the real problems are getting ignored. So, again, which department or which emotion is dominating your organization? When you look at your organization, what part of your organization is dominating? And when we have a situation where each department is optimizing for its own success, that doesn't end in good results. So what are the consequences typically of this inside-out thinking? Well, leadership will push for unrealistic goals. Legal will block any innovation. IT fights with marketing. And ultimately, we end up with slow delivery, misalignment, and a lack of real user focus. And then, of course, forgot about sadness and support right at the end there. They're in there at some point. So these are the challenges that we're facing within our organizations. Now, in Riley's world, Riley's fine. She's all happy. She's 11 years old. She's loving life. And then her parents say, hey, we're going to move to San Francisco. Mind blown, quite literally. And so what starts to happen? So the emotions start to notice that her personality's islands are starting to crumble. And they're not quite sure what's going on. So the core emotions, working independently of each other, they just can't work it out. What on earth is happening? Okay? And this happens in organizations as well. When the world around us changes, when the environment changes, the customer changes, organizations end up in their silos going, what are we going to do? And so when the world around us changes, we've got some really good examples of that. We've seen those in. So inside-out thinking, Blockbuster, as an example, they optimize for running video stores, and ultimately an outside-in thinking company comes in, and they optimize for how people actually want to watch videos. Then Nokia, the other one, they optimized for selling phones, disrupted by Apple, who wanted to optimize for how people actually wanted to experience technology. So these kind of things are happening all the time, all around us, and there's just some classic examples. So one thing to take away is, organizations that are focusing inside out often tend to fall behind, and organizations that are shifting towards this outside-in thinking tend to thrive. So how can we do more of that? What can we learn? So during the movie, Inside Out, Joy starts to realize, hey, we're working independently here, but we need to start to work together. We actually need a bit of joy and a bit of sadness to help Riley cope. So we need to stop trying to optimize for our internal success, and we need to start to move towards outside-in thinking. How can we start thinking more about what Riley needs? What does she actually need for us to deliver value for her? And how can we work together to achieve it? So the shift then from inside out to outside in. And we're going to talk about user needs mapping, hopefully with a bit of practical kind of view. But working with Riley Inc. So this may not apply directly to your organization. It's a metaphor. So what are the steps of user needs mapping? First of all, define your purpose. What are you looking to do? In this case, we just want to understand our current landscape. What do things look like? So therefore, we start by identifying who our user is. And in this case, it's Riley. She's an 11-year-old. That's awesome. But what does she need? Well, she needs social belonging. She needs personal growth and achievement. She needs trust and integrity. She needs joyfulness and playfulness. And she definitely needs some emotional resilience. And she'll need some security and support. So there are some underlying needs that Riley Inc. needs to come together to help support. So if we were to start to build a user needs map, what does that look like? So this is the beginnings of one. We just say Riley at the top with her needs across the side. So we're just connecting Riley to her needs, all nice and simple. It's amazing how many organizations you say, who are your users? And they're like, I don't know. And then when you say, and what are their needs? Mind blown again. So actually just having those conversations can be really insightful. So where do we go from capturing the needs? We then start to add a value chain on the left-hand side, and we start to pop some of the capabilities. So in order to achieve social belonging, we need some social communication skills. And social communication skills depends on our core emotions. So our core emotions being sadness, joy, all of those things. So we just got a basic value chain. What do we need in order to meet that particular, what capabilities do we need to enable that? And then we start to add more capabilities. So what other capabilities might we need? We need some physical skill development. We need ethical decision making. We need some moral reasoning. Those kind of things, and then we just throw everything on, why not, until it starts to become and resemble a typical big ball of mud. So essentially our organization, in order to meet all of our customer needs, these are the capabilities that we need. And it's all a little bit of a mess, really. So what can we do with that? But we can also overlay our current teams. So our current teams in Riley Inc. are our joy teams, and essentially they're across every single capability. They need to be involved in everything. So they're spread really, really thinly. They have to manage core emotions, they have to do all of these other capabilities, and it's a bit of a mess. So what we can then do is start to analyze those capabilities and just shift around. So this is the same capabilities, but just moved around a little bit. And so what we can see is actually there's clusters of dependent capability that actually relate to meeting particular user needs. And so we can rearrange those to help us visually see, so make the work visible, to see how those things might be dependent. And then we can start to think about, well, what if we had teams of 5 to 9 people that owned delivery of value to meet those particular user needs? So we might have a security and support team that handles looking after the emotional resilience, all of those kind of things. A creativity and fun team that's looking after joyfulness and all the other elements that take up that side of things. And then we can also cluster wherever we've got the connections down to core emotions. That might be an indication that we need a supporting platform team to help the others. And then we might simplify those capabilities. We take a zoom out slightly and just say, well, instead of having all those capabilities together, let's classify those as our individual islands. So we've got our hockey island in here. So this is hockey island is owned by our personal growth team. Emotional integrity owns our honesty island. So we're actually starting to give them capabilities that they're responsible for. And we can recognize what dependencies they have on the underlying core emotions and core memory. And then if we want to, we can explode that a little bit as well. So what's inside of our core emotions or platform? We actually have a complicated subsystem, which is our core memory, and also a streamlined team that is our core emotions team. So that's one way we could represent it. So, what does a real-world example of this look like? At the end of last year, I had the absolute pleasure of working with a company called the Blue Lagoon. Has anyone been to the Blue Lagoon? Quick show of hands. If you haven't, it's amazing. It's in Iceland. Highly, highly recommended. And I had the absolute pleasure of going there and working with the team with my colleague, Erica Englund, who's just sat there. So the Blue Lagoon came to us to say, can you help us with our existing org chart? This is what it looked like. So typical, as you might expect. Myself and Erica had our team topology value practitioner hat on. And essentially the question they came to us with was, how can we scale, innovate and adapt effectively and with motivated, happy people? That was the thing we were trying to solve, and we currently are organized this way. So we looked to work with them, and essentially we did a 3-day on-site workshop to kind of get everything out of their heads. I think it was about 30 people from IT and engineering, but we also invited sales, marketing, all of those things together. And we threw together a user needs map, but that's part of a broader engagement as well. So there were other techniques, such as independent service heuristics. I won't go into those today, but well worth looking up if you've not come across those before. And then team interaction modeling, capturing your current state. How does work flow through your systems? And what does future state need to look like? So over this period of time, we just worked with them to understand the current state. And in this case, we had just lots of stickies on mirror boards, lots of working through, lots of dependency lines. Where might there be potential opportunities to find streamlined teams that they could align to better value? And ultimately, it resulted in them being able to start to define what their value streams are, and how they could organize their people better to achieve faster flow of change. So they're not fully there yet. We got them part of the way. They're currently in the process of transitioning from that original org chart to where they need to be. But user needs mapping really helped them to visualize and see where each of those teams were starting to add some value. So back to Riley and Riley Inc. Unfortunately, user needs mapping isn't a one and done thing because things change. And in Riley's world, Inside Out 2, puberty alert, woo! Life has suddenly changed again. Our environment has changed, and we need to react. So, Riley now has new needs. Suddenly, her old needs are no longer enough. She now needs self-expression. She needs to be able to fit in with the world. She needs a better sense of belonging, to get some kind of admiration from her peers. She needs to feel able to protect herself and be able to signal to her friends and the environment she's working in or living in. She also starts to introduce emotional fatigue. Any teenagers and parents of teenagers? Okay, so there is this will resonate with everyone. So teenagers suddenly get very, very tired, very quickly, and very bored. Oh, it's so boring. And also a bit of, regarding a reputation and being able to anticipate things. So her new needs have changed, but also she has new emotions. What? Life was simple. We had joy, we had sadness. That's simple. Nope. Suddenly we're all a little bit anxious. And there's a bit of envy in there. We're envious of our friends. And ennui. Now, ennui. Who knew? So ennui is a posh word for disengagement and boredom. So there you go. If that's one thing you take away today, it will be that. And embarrassment. So all of these new emotions are flooding into her world. So what are the core emotions going to do? It's like, woo, where have you come from? We've got new needs. We've got new capabilities. How are we going to now work together? So what's starting to happen is what was her personality islands are beginning to collapse again. And suddenly, what was her family island, her honesty island, all of those things start to crumble. And they go back to panicking. What are they going to do? Luckily, they had a user needs map. And what they did was map out the new user needs. So they just added their user needs on here. This is their old user needs and their old capabilities. These are the new ones. And started to throw on all of the capabilities. And so let's reassess this. We've got new needs now and new dependencies between all of our capabilities. So we can start to visualize this. We can start to have conversations about how we can evolve, how we can move capabilities between teams. And then we can start to say, actually, we don't necessarily need to completely collapse all of our teams. Some of those teams might need to adapt. Some of those things might become more commoditized. And so we can handle more work. We can do more things. So in this case, our complex emotions, which are our new emotions that sit on top of our core emotions, start to form the foundations of our new behaviors. Our personal growth team starts to become more about identity and performance. How do we actually live in the world? Our friendship team starts to expand to include the capability to fit in. And creativity and fun starts to include a bit of sarcasm. Everyone loves a bit of sarcasm, especially us Brits. So very much. So really important stuff. And essentially, organizations need to be able to do the same. And question to you, how does your organization adapt to change? And if you hadn't noticed, something else is happening in the world right now, and I'd be remiss for not saying it, so here it is. AI alert, whoop whoop. Okay, so inside of your organization, how are you adopting AI? What user needs, and actual user needs, is AI going to help support, rather than, hey, we need to do AI. Where, how, why? Well, let's set up an AI department, and they'll just do AI. What for? I don't know. We should just do it anyway. Okay. So, key takeaways. I had a bit of a life goal unlocked when this happened. So I published userneedsmapping.com a couple of months ago, and do what Simon says. So Simon says that this is really positive. And he knows it's not a full map, it's fine, but even thinking about users, their needs, and chain of components is a transformational change. So if you can just start the conversation around users and needs, you're already in the top 10%, 5% of companies. So give it some love. That's Simon saying that, it's not me, just saying. But I'm sorry, Simon, and I've always wanted to be this person. If you know Simon Wardley, then he has conversations like this. So Simon messaged me and he said, love user needs mapping, good job. I was like, ooh, this is awesome, great. And I said, thank you very much, it's very nice of you. I'm really sorry it's not really a map, but I still call it mapping in his world. And so user needs graphing just didn't quite sound right. But if you squint a little bit, the team boundaries, you could call those countries, and then when you move capabilities, there's movement. So I'm holding on to map, and Simon said, it doesn't matter whether it's a map or not, the question is it useful? And if you find it useful, then use it. If you don't find it useful, don't use it. The fact it's called mapping, fine, just move on. So that was one key takeaway, do what Simon says, and I'm sorry, Simon. Other things, organizations that focus on inside out fall behind. So if your organization is currently focusing inside out, how can you start to think or shift more towards outside in? We need to stop asking how do we optimize our teams and start asking what do our users actually need? Stop thinking inside out and start thinking outside in. And I guess one question to you is, what is one change that you could make, going back today, that's going to help you align your teams more closely with user needs? And with that, I've got a few things on here. One thing is an exclusive free prize, because why not? Competition. So everyone in the room, if you're interested in understanding your current landscape user needs map, then feel free to reach out and sign up for that. I'm happy to give out a free one of those. If you want to connect with me on LinkedIn, I'm more than happy to talk about user needs mapping or any kind of things like that that can help you move forward. And I'd also hopefully got time for some questions. So are there any questions that people would like to throw out?
Aren't you just creating, isn't it just a way to create other component teams?
Other component teams?
Yeah, like other silos.
So this is the important thing, right? So silos, every team is potentially a silo, you could argue, but we need to look at fast flow of value and reducing cognitive load, right? So by starting with the user and their needs, and start thinking about, well, how do we deliver value to those those users? And based on the needs that we're serving, what capabilities do we need within that team? That's our starting point. And from there, we say, has that team got sufficient cognitive load capacity to deal with that? And then we start introducing the other team types, so any kind of supporting team types that help with that. Now, there might be clusters or groupings of value streams that are closely related. So we want to have close collaboration between those teams. And so there might be a grouping of things around certain user needs. But the key thing is, yes, there might be a current silo, but everything's changing. So do the teams have the autonomy to be able to evolve and change as necessary? Do we have the environment, as Joao was mentioning earlier, the environment that enables teams to say, hey, something's changed. We need to collaborate together to work out how to shift the ownership of that capability. Who should own that enables fast flow to delivery of value to the teams? So every team is a silo in some respect. It's just what's the flow of value? How do we get decisions made? How can we increase the autonomy for teams to enable them to shift? And visualizing using a user needs map is really saying, well, what user needs are you serving? How are you serving them? And it enables those teams to see where they fit in. So in the grand scheme of things, when it comes to strategy for the organization, these are who we're serving, this is the value we're delivering, and this is how we fit into that entire value chain.
Thank you very much, Rich. Round of applause.
Thank you very much.